on this episode of The Brothers Mysterium.
Say Zozo went to the Ouija board and all of a sudden Zozo the demon comes and chops your eyes out or something like that.
There's hundreds and hundreds of creepy stories involving these entities that use these letter Z's.
And he said, the devil made me do it, which is a super creepy response.
I have a well-educated opinion of what it is, but honestly, we still don't know.
My brother and I have always been intrigued by the unexplainable. Like many, we're fascinated with stories of the supernatural, fringe science, and modern-day mysteries.
Though we've seen no first-hand proof of its existence, our minds remain open to the possibility.
Unsatisfied with the so-called evidence on television and the internet, we are choosing to take matters into our own hands and conduct our own interviews and research.
Now we're on a quest to speak with as many people as we can and hear the stories of these events from those who have lived them.
No Hollywood effects or exaggerations, and no hidden agenda. We invite you to listen and decide what and who you believe.
We are the Brothers Mysterium.
Hello and welcome to the Brothers Mysterium. This is Tommy and Eric.
Heyo.
We are the Brothers Mysterium, and we are back. Back in the saddle. More episodes coming at you. We want to thank everybody for all their support. The show's blowing up. Please continue to like us on Facebook, rate, review us on your podcast provider, tweet us, tell your friends about us, because we are doing big things in the paranormal community, and we're about to do big things right now.
Indeed. And this upcoming interview is actually one that came to our attention because of the last interview we did in part 1 of the Ouija series, which, finding new people and discovering new things is always the cool part of doing research and talking to the experts.
Even we don't know where we're going to end up. I ask one Zozo question to Merch. He sends us to Darren Evans, and then we get to explore the whole world. Once again, we go to the top leading expert in the Zozo Phenomena in Zeemanology,
which is something absolutely brand new to me and actually adds a crazier and scarier element to the whole Ouija board thing. Darren Evans was definitely the guy to talk to.
What else is there to say?
Hell yeah. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Tommy from the Brothers Mysterium. How are you?
Fine, Tommy. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for making the time for us.
You bet.
Cool.
So here in part 2 of our Ouija series, Tommy had the opportunity to speak with another Ouija expert.
If you didn't believe in the spirit world, I was kind of the guy that you could call and I'd come to your house and bring my Ouija board. And there was very few times that we ever walked away from someone who didn't seriously begin to question their beliefs.
And if you listened to the last episode, part 1 of our Ouija series, then you know exactly who this guy is.
My name's Darren Evans. I'm a paranormal researcher from Tulsa, Oklahoma. A lot of my research is into demonology, in particular what has become known as the Zozo Phenomenon.
Though most everyone is familiar with Ouija boards, fewer people know about Zozo. So naturally, we wanted to know, what is it?
That's a good question, man. There's a lot of strong opinions as to what its origins are, what is it that we're dealing with that continues to surface on Ouija boards throughout the world. It appears to be random. It appears to be what they call a drop-in communicator. In many instances, someone will get on the board and they're trying to attempt to talk to their dead grandmother, and suddenly something will start talking like, your old grandmother that was when she was alive, and it knows that inflection, it knows those types of behaviors that only she would know, and it reveals this information such as middle names, dates of birth, that can be incredibly accurate. And so in many cases it will pretend to be one of these deceased loved ones, a deceased rock star, and it'll suck you in and get you interested, and then at some later time, it will do an about face and tell you its real agenda and tell you it was all the whole time. That's a very common denominator in these experiences.
In more prominent cases, the entity introduces or reveals itself by spelling its name out over and over and over again on the Ouija board.
It's the same word, Zio, that's found in early gematria. The letter Z being the seventh letter of the alphabet in Hebrew, and its meanings, and the numerology surrounding all this is pretty crazy. And so, it's just, it's one of them things that, there's an alien connection. In 1958, an early pioneer of UFOlogy, George Williamson began to communicate with something that called itself Zoe on a Ouija board, which led to some very strange Morse code type of communication. And so we just continue to find little pieces of this that's been documented in history, how it all ties in together in an attempt to try to figure out what the hell's really going on. And so it's definitely fascinating, but again, it's also very disturbing.
When most people hear the word Zozo, what most commonly comes to mind is the symbol associated with the band Led Zeppelin, which is originally seen on the back cover of their album, Led Zeppelin 4. This symbol seems to spell out Zozo, but this is just a coincidence. According to Adele Nazadar's Signs and Symbols of Magic and Mystery, Jimmy Page actually used two different symbols and combined them. The alchemical symbol for Saturn, which looks like the letter Z, and the sign for Capricorn, two circles surrounded by what looks like the letter S, which are then intersected by a line. Put them together, and it looks like Zozo. Page merely chose these because, as astrological signs, they both correspond to his birthday, January 9th. The Zozo that Darren Evans has dedicated his work to is an entity all its own, so much so that he's developed and coined his own branch of paranormal research.
What is Zeemanology?
Zemonology is kind of a word that comes naturally as it's very similar to demonology. John Zappis did the foreword to a book that we wrote, which is basically the first official examination into this phenomenon. In his foreword, he made the comment that Rosemary and I were, kind of unlocking new doors into demonology.
One of the unique characteristics of Zeemanology is looking at the connection between certain demonic forces and the letter Z.
Studying the fascinating history of the letter Z, why is it that so many what I call Z entities continue to surface? There's hundreds and hundreds of creepy stories involving these entities that use these letter Zs. And so it's caused me to take a look at ancient civilizations. The letter Z, it's only the last 100 years that it was even pronounced Z. It was pronounced Izzard and Zed. It appears on planet surfaces, aerial phenomenon. It's a new way of looking into something that there's something going on with this letter Z. As weird as it may sound, I've dug up information from insurance company statistics that have written about how if the letter Z is in someone's license plate, there seems to be a correlation with tragic accidents. The people that have the letter Z in these license plates, for whatever reason, are more apt to be involved in these serious tragedies. And so when you begin looking, at all this information that's out there, you kind of, you try to form, you dig up bones, and in this case, we've kind of dug up so many that it's formed a skeleton, kind of capable of its own pursuit.
Right.
The way it's kind of showed urban legend, thought form, tulpa, egregore type of characteristics within the phenomenon. So while I'm someone who researches it and takes it very seriously, I have a well-educated opinion of what it is, but honestly, we still don't know. There's a lot of interesting connections found in literature, apocrypha, archives on the word Zozo. I've had a professor study the etymology of the root Zo.
From the research that Tommy and I conducted, we found that in Greek, the root Zo, Z-O, denotes a living being, in particular, animals. This can be seen today, like in the suffix zoic, which is in words like cryptozoic, paleozoic, or in zodiac, or zoanthropy, which is when people can turn into wolves, kind of like lichens. However, according to Darren, this demon's hauntings go way beyond Ouija boards and its phonetic connection to the letter Z.
It does appear to be jumping outside the realm of the Ouija board with more common frequency nowadays than perhaps what was going on 8 to 10 years ago, when you were just finding a handful of stories on the internet about Ouija boards. But I've been able to dig throughout history and had some incredible access to some documents and I've been able to locate very strange, very demonic references, such as in 1816, the account of a young girl that was possessed over in the UK. It written in the dictionary Infernal, written in various editions in the 1800s. And it mentions Zozo as an actual demon that was involved in a possession case in 1816. And so that's, when I found that in 2010, I believe, that really, that was exciting, because here we are, we're looking at actual mentionings of something called Zozo, and it being a demon. And so a lot of people do just, I've read just lots of comments, well, it can't be a demon because it's not in the Tibetan or Egyptian Book of the Dead. It's not in Goetia. It's not in the, the Necromonicon. It's not in these literature works that name demons. But, honestly, are we to concern ourselves with names found in books, or do we really look at what's going on in these communications, in the modern world, and taking a look at some of these names that come through, and these names are repeated in other contact sessions on Ouija boards? And so, as strange as it may be, I'm someone who looks into these types of encounters constantly, and have been sent thousands of strange encounters from all over the world.
Yeah, that's there's something.
It crosses. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh no, I was going to say, yeah. Like you're just about to say. It seems like it's not just a small group of people, or it's a widespread phenomena.
Oh, indeed. Very strange, disturbing cases that I've consulted with. So many of them. There's been a few that involve suicide. One guy was stationed in Afghanistan. Began to have made a homemade Ouija board. Began having strange communication with something that called itself Zozo. And so what the hell's going on? Why are so many people experiencing it?
Could you share some of the more intense experiences people have contacted you with in regards to Zozo?
Just all kinds of crazy stuff. There was one, a middle-aged, a middle student, and her friends were having a sleepover, and they started chanting Zozo because they'd seen a weird, video on Zozo on YouTube. They started chanting it. Suddenly, this young girl had a violent nosebleed that wouldn't stop for 2 days. She became very ill, developed some kind of weird medical problem, and just the things that they went through just for having exposed themselves to that term, and it just so many. I mean, there's a case in New Jersey involving some twins that they did an actual exorcism sponsored by the Catholic Church that was filmed. That I'm unable to share due to the crazy things and accusations put forth from these twins, teenage twins, that are just crazy and involve sexual abuse, and it's just crazy. Some of the stories that have come through, that some of them aren't true, and but I'm pretty able to talk to someone on the phone and feel them out and get some information and just dig into their minds as regard to their experiences. And it's pretty simple to weed out the obvious bullshit encounters.
After talking with Darren, it was clear that this wasn't the kind of thing that one just heavily researches out of pure curiosity. There's always a backstory.
In the mid-'80s, there was a very strange Ouija board found underneath the house of one of my girlfriends, or the girl I was dating at the time. It was a strange double-sided board, and on one particular side, it was a standard William Fold board that we traced down to the 30s. Very large, heavy board, and it was glued to another board, which had strange inscriptions and symbols and the word Zozo on the board. That that's where my involvement began in 1982. Began to have sessions on that board. And it was just very grisly, strange-looking work of art that was also found, had jars of preserved blackbirds surrounding the board. So it was definitely used by what appeared to be someone who was into the occult. A few years after the internet came out, I began to look into people's experiences to see if there was anybody that, was similar to mine. Sure enough, I began to find handfuls of stories of people having strange encounters with this thing on Ouija boards. And so that really struck home with me because of its weird name. Just so many strange things have happened in the course of the events in the last decade, which I went public with my research and experiences a decade ago. Never would I dreamed that it would become what it has, and it's both fascinating, but it's also very unnerving. Thousands and thousands of videos of people, talking this thing on YouTube alone, and so what the hell are we dealing with, And it remains just a very controversial, subject matter.
Of course, Darren's experiences didn't end after the ominous homemade board under the house of his ex. And
could you give us some of your experiences, your firsthand experiences with Zozo?
Sure. Like I said, I was kind of the guy in the late 80s, early 90s that ridiculously obsessed with Ouija sessions and trying to prove evidence of the spirit world. And I brought it over to a friend of mine's house named Mike Silver, and his girlfriend just absolutely did not believe in that type of thing. And so me and my ex-wife, we came over, got on the board at their house, and she's looking at us like we're crazy, of course, and well, we get on the board, and by that time we were carrying around candles and little chalices of earth and just really trying to experiment with what triggers could be used, to manifest, more accurate results and whatnot. But we got on the board and it kept spelling window, and that's all it would say. And we're in the living room and there was 3 windows, and they were covered with curtains, and I kept looking out the window, and it's like that's all it'll spell until we were getting ready to stop, and all of a sudden it said hello. It spelled hello. Well, around that same time, Mike's girlfriend went to the kitchen to get us something to drink. Well, we heard a scream, and she had actually seen someone peeking in at the window at her. And so me and Michael bolted out the door. We're like, what the hell's going on? Well, we see this huge, tall, bald, strange-looking guy running down the road. And so we gave chase. We chased him for like 3 blocks. He was really fast. We were in shape. We were athletic. We chased this guy to a building that we didn't really know exists, but it just happened to be a Tulsa Behavioral Health building for the mentally impaired.
Huh.
Well, this guy had escaped from that place, and there was Tulsa police were, there was 2 cop cars outside that had their lights on. Well, he kind of disappeared, around this place. Well, I was able to track one of the officers down. I told him what happened, that somebody had a peeping Tom peeking through windows at us. Well, they were there because this guy had left, and it wasn't supposed to. Obviously, very strange individual. Well, for whatever reason, he came out and went quite a ways to go peeking in this window, and the officer went in there and interviewed him. They got him back where he should be. The officer came back kind of scratching his head, had a smile on his face, and he talked to me, asked me what happened. We told him. Well, he told us that he went in there and talked to the guy, and he was, obviously a mental patient. And when they asked him why he, had left and why he was peeking in people's windows, his reply was, the devil made him do it.
Wow, creepy.
These were the kinds of things that happen, when we get on these boards back then. And these types of stories continue to pour in. Every time I get on a board, here recently, the trend is, once in a while I will get back on one. And I did it on Ghost Adventures.
Night has fallen. It's time to see if we can contact a demon.
Okay, right now I just shut the door behind me, and I have Darren, I have Kathleen with me right now. We're going right into this with you.
Do we have to get on the board?
Yeah. It's been about 10 years since I had a real sessions act, so this is pretty emotional time for us, but I trust you guys, man.
We move immediately to the room where Darren and his wife Kathleen's attachment to Zozo, the demon, occurred while using a spirit board.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to use this investigation to show you that conjuring up demons on an Ouija board is something that we would never suggest. And we are doing it for the sole purpose to get Darren more answers, to get us more evidence, and to try and learn and study more about what these entities are. And there's big risks attached to that. Here we go.
I got a bad feeling, man.
Darren, do you want
Like everything's tunnel vision, and like everyone just started
where would you like to do it, Darren?
But I was on Live Sci-Fi with Tim Wood here a while back, and we did a session in the Zozo Demon House, another Ghost Adventures episode in 2014. Well, it began to attack a friend of his with words who committed suicide, and so similarly to as it did in the Ghost Adventures episode where it started to make fun of Jay Walsley's family member, with whom I had no idea even existed. This thing's, it's not good. And when it begins to read people's minds, and it has this information, it knows what to say to really get under your skin, and it can cause a profound, experience because of the stuff that it knows and that it reveals. And it's mind-blowing how many experiences involving this type of phenomenon. This thing knows things that it couldn't possibly know unless it was able to read minds. And so how is it able to be in so many places, at so many different locations? And these are just all questions that we continue to try to keep our eye on, and I don't know what it is, but I'm honest enough to try to put it into terms where people can relate, share their experiences, reveal what happened to them, and so I've been able to collect just an incredible amount of stories from people.
Just like any researcher of the paranormal, Darren comes across a good amount of skeptics, and though he's deeply invested in the phenomena, he makes sure to keep his mind open.
If you've never had an experience, of course you're going to be skeptic. I encourage everybody to be skeptical. Have a reasonable. I'm very open-minded when it comes to things like this, and so I'm able to look at it and give my perspective. But fully admitting that I can't prove that this thing is from the realm of the demonic.
And of course, he comes up against the most common argument meant to debunk the supernatural power of the Ouija board, the ideomotor effect. Now, the ideomotor effect is pretty much a subconscious physical movement made by those using the board. So rather than a ghost or spirit moving the planchette, skeptics say it's a subtle reflex of which the users are not directly aware.
And so people that, just scoff it as just the ideomotor effect or whatever, I've done quite a bit of research on that. And I think it's important to note that there's really no way, if it is minor muscle movements that we're dealing with from our subconscious, the ideomotor effect does not explain how what type of magical force resolves. For instance, 3 or 4 people put their hands on a planchette, it begins to spell coherent sentence structures. How is it that the ideomotor effect can resolve this group subconscious transfer and resolve it instantaneously into very meaningful and prophetic wisdom, the knowledge of the unknown? It's not a concrete explanation for what's really going on, and so that's the big debate.
Right.
Having talked to Robert Murch for years about this, are we dealing with spirit world or are we dealing with our subconscious? And I think it could be some of each.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And then I guess similarly, if somebody suddenly finds themselves communicating with Zozo or an evil entity who's not who they thought, everybody says you can kind of just go to goodbye and it'll end it. I've heard other times they say goodbye, but now they've sort of invited something into their house. Is there any sort of protection somebody can use to try to prevent that? Any sort of ritual or, sage or rosemary they could burn, or tips to maybe, if you are going to use a Ouija board, protect yourself?
That's a great question. One that's asked repeatedly, and I think it has to do with people's belief systems. What will work with one person may not work for another, and again, I think that traces down to laws of recognition, laws of attraction, various things that go into play when you have these sessions. And so in many cases, nothing happens. The planchette doesn't move. I was on Ghost Adventures recently and had sat down with Zach Bagans in a pretty creepy location, and for quite a while, the planchette wouldn't move at all. That's very rare for me to get on the board with someone that doesn't really, go right into communication. But you just don't know. It is definitely a roll of the dice. You don't know what's going to come through. And unless you've just had years of training and you're in tune with your energy and it's for the right reasons, the right intent, maybe you'll have a good experience on a board. But honestly, how many good experiences do we hear about? And so many paranormal people in the field are so quick to point out that it's the demonization of Hollywood on the board that's given, in the Exorcist films, lent towards its negative reputation. Well, I looked into all that, and I was given access to some of the first books written on planchettes, spirit activity, talking to spirits, and the Ouija board when it came out. And in many of these books that were written in the late 1800s, it goes into great detail about negative entities that come through and how it scared people and it caused hauntings. And so this ain't nothing new.
Right.
This bad reputation is not necessarily caused by Hollywood demonization. Now, of course, the ratings, people like good scary stories, and Ouija boards are, produce some of the scariest stories, that's out there. And so, but I don't agree with that line of thinking in that it's Hollywood's fault. These experiences, and they're shared in some of these early books, nothing's changed. There's always that possibility that you'll be speaking to something on a negative level, and that's just what I consider to be just how it is.
Would you kind of advise people then to not use Ouija boards, or is it sort of like use it at your own risk type of deal?
Yeah, definitely use it at your own risk. If you have an interest, just don't go blind into it and have some kind of, expectation bias. I never know what it's going to say, what's going to come through. And so I always tell people, look, I have no idea what's fixing to happen, what it's fixing to say. I assure you that I'm not moving it. And anybody that uses the board with me will tell you that I'm not moving it, that it definitely seems like it's being moved by some outside force. And so I know people are going to do it. I just... I tell these people, if you must use a board, be as positive, be respectful towards the spirit realm. You'll have a lot better luck than a lot of this, crazy, childish, teenage provocation that's so oftenly seen in the various ghost hunting shows and everything. And so, if you do get in contact with something that begins to act strange, always a good idea to close the session, dismiss the spirits respectfully. Use whatever protection that works for you. Some people use circles of light. Some people use silver coins. I mean, there's so much that people, so many different beliefs and things that people do to try to protect themselves. And so, I just tell people that use what belief structure that you have going into these sessions, and just to be very cautious and very aware of your surroundings and a good sound body and mind.
And you said that you can usually sit down with anybody and pretty quickly get a response. Is that something innate in you, or is it from like practice? Like some people are good at basketball, other people's aren't. Are you just naturally attuned to using this, or do you think it's from all your experience that you're able to kind of dial it in and make contact a little quicker?
Yeah, I think each person has a consciousness, and they're able to bring out different archetypes, which the archetypes may be, of the spirit world. But you're speaking to something outside your own intelligence, whether it be subconsciously or, outside the box, so to speak. I mean, if you look at a radio, it appears that a voice is coming through that radio. It appears that it's coming from the box. However, we know that it's being, that there's a signal being broadcast. It comes from some other area. Many serial killers and bad guys, say that they, what caused them to commit their heinous crime? Well, they heard a voice in their head. Is that voice coming from the subconscious, or could it be possible that some of these voices are coming from malevolent, entities whose sole purpose is to, destroy man? And so, a lot of religion involved, a lot of beliefs, and that's why it remains so controversial. Not everybody agrees with what I have to say, but having done so many sessions and heard so many stories and everything, it's just it paints a very similar picture with me. And when it begins to happen worldwide with similar events, I'll get that. You have to look at what's going on and try to rationalize it. And sometimes there's not much rationalization that can be done when you're dealing with the spirit realm and spirit communication. And yes, it is happening with more frequency now in pendulums, automated writing, ITC sessions, ghost boxes, a lot of dreams. A lot of people are reporting it in their dreams, saying that they've never heard of it before. Well, it's possible that some conscious did collect that data in your sleep. Somebody had a YouTube video, somebody was talking about it. So those are possibilities, but there's been so many people that have contacted me saying, I've never heard of this weird word. People say Zozo the clown, like Bozo. I mean, a lot of people make fun of the name or the symbol, whatever the hell it is. But I did run across perhaps one of my most interesting finds recently. I was deciphering some manuscripts. One was a translation of a Tibetan prophecy from the 7th century. And I was able to locate this manuscript in French. And it was from a professor of Asian studies. And it goes into a Tibetan prophecy that names Zozo as Lord of all demons, and that it's actually a human that's released from what they call the 9th sphere, and that releasage from that king, and Zozo, all the demons begin to, he become Lord of the demons, and it signaled the end, or the beginning of the end of mankind. Just a crazy prophecy that names Zozo as a human, in a very prophetic, disturbing way of talking about the different epochs of man, different cycles and how the world's going to come to an end. And it mentions some very strange things that seem to tie into modern events. Wow. And I'll be publishing that at some time in the future. But it's just, it remains, I keep, the more I dig, the more I find. And it's taken me a decade to find what I have.
Right, yeah.
But I've got some really crazy stuff that I found, in reference to this weird Zozo.
Yeah.
Whereas once was obsessed with playing with the board, it's now become kind of a role reversal where, I'm kind of known as someone who warns people that strange things, can happen. And if you're not prepared or be careful what you wish for, because there are just so many reports of this thing surfacing, causing paranormal activity, causing tragic accidents, foretelling, foreboding events, blasphemous exchanges.
So one final question. Are you now kind of hesitant to use a Ouija board, just knowing that Zozo's out there and you seem to make contact so much?
It bothers me. People want to know how to get rid of it. They come to me for answers. And, that's not an easy thing. I can't lie to people and tell you that I know a clear-cut, concrete method of ridding oneself of what may be a biological attachment of sorts. And so I don't have easy answers to all that. And it is very unnerving that when I get on the board, it's there. It's like it's always been there. And so I am hesitant to get on one, because when I do, some very strange communication is about to come through, and I never have it, an idea of what it's going to go into, what it's going to, it tries to take over the conversation. It'll ask you to chant words that sound like Aramaic or Hebrew, so it's just, I'm very hesitant to do a board for good reason,
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Is there anything you want to plug? Websites? I know you have books. Anything you want us to make sure we mention?
Just, the book's on Amazon or at ZozoPhenomenonbook.com. I encourage, if people are interested in the phenomenon, to read a little bit of it. Get the book, share it with friends, whatever. And I do have Darren Evans Paranormal at blogspot.com, that people can look into some of the more recent research before it's all published in another second official examination. So that's about it, man. But I appreciate you having me on, man, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time, and when this episode drops, we'll definitely let you know.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
The Brothers
Mysterium.
All right, so I want to thank Darren Evans again. Awesome guest. Zozo, the name, the words kind of appear all over the world, all over the globe. People have reached out to Darren from everywhere. Zeemanology and looking into the Z entities and the letter Z. And the thing he said about like even license plate with Z's in them have more accidents and stuff was all.
I gotta check my license plate before I get out of here.
Everybody should.
Yeah.
But they were things I never had considered before. What are your thoughts coming out of that? Did you think it was good, great? Did you think it was Zozo? That's a so-so joke. Not the best joke.
It's been a while since we've had a good pun.
I'll try to keep coming with the puns.
I found it kind of curious in a good way. To me, it suggests a little more realism in the fact that there isn't a very specific pattern of how it happens each time there's a Zozo incident. It's not like the old like Bloody Mary, like we talked about that. Like you say Bloody Mary into the mirror, and then it comes out and kills you, and all this. It's not like you say you play Led Zeppelin or you say Zozo into the Ouija board, and all of a sudden Zozo the demon comes and chops your eyes out or something like that.
Yes.
So it to me it rings as if it's rooted in some kind of like a happening of continuity. Like there's whether or not it's actually like real or not. If it is a demon, I don't know. But there's definitely something that's happening that is causing this pattern to emerge, which again says to me there's realism behind it.
Yeah, and it's always it always gets its hooks in me, and I think both of us, when it's more than just like it's not a new age fad. Like now that the internet's here, it's Zozo. It's people all across the world, different languages, different regions. I mean, even in going back into history, he mentioned he found like an ancient Tibetan prophecy that had Zozo was some sort of a human spirit that was the lord of demons and stuff. So it's this a reoccurring theme that no matter who you are, where you are, what time you lived in, something is happening with Zozo. Cool things I liked about Darren, once again, he was a lot like Merch in that he was open-minded. He said he encourages people to be skeptics. He keeps an open mind about it all. He admitted that the debate will rage on forever, whether it's your subconscious or not when you use the board.
Right.
And through the board, whether or not you're actually connecting with Zozo or some sort of a demon. He had some really incredible stories of what other people have reached out to him with, like the girl with the nosebleed for 2 days and stuff. But one that was super disturbing, and I didn't know where he was going to go with it when he started telling it, was they're all sitting around playing it. Then the Ouija board starts spelling out window.
Right.
And then hello. And then there's a giant weird guy outside, and they're chasing him through the streets. And I'm kind of like, is he going to tell me that this weird guy just dissolved as they were about to grab him? But no, in reality, it turned out to be a escaped mental patient of some sort. And then when the police even said, like, what are you running around creeping in windows? I don't like to say peeping Tom. I think it brings negative aspects to the...
Negative stigma to the Toms.
Yes, it's reinforcing negative stereotypes that the Tommy Mysterium fans won't stand for. But
although Doubting Thomas is all about it.
Well, yeah. The police said, why are you doing this? And he said, the devil made me do it, which is a super creepy response. But again, an actual factual occurrence that happened that was sort of predicted moments earlier by the Ouija board. Another thing I like that Darren kind of mentioned, and mirrored what Murch had told us. Was, once again, he said, you got to do, what fits your system of beliefs, what makes you comfortable. He was saying what works for one person might not work for another as far as trying to use the Ouija board to make contact. He talked about the law of recognition, law of attraction. And it's interesting, too, that he himself is even a little bit gun-shy now about hopping on a Ouija board because he's gotten so good at it. He said he can do it kind of quickly. He's been brought on to hit paranormal shows, to sit down with the hosts and use Ouija boards with them. But he definitely was a lot more on the hesitant side of be cautious. It's not fun for him. It's not a toy. He was definitely saying, if you're going to do it, there are risks. Be careful.
Sure.
So it was an educational Zozo extravaganza. And I learned a lot of new things that I before had no knowledge of.
Now, is this one of those instances where once you name it, people will assign this legend or assign their experience to this legend now? So anything happens with a Z, and now all of a sudden you have these people who are like, it's got to be Zozo. I had a Zozo experience,
Yeah, I'm sure that is a part of it.
It's similar to like with like the numbers game that people play. Oh, the number 11 is everywhere. It's everywhere. And you know what I mean?
Right. Well, when you're looking for something, you can definitely always find it.
Right.
And like you're saying, I think that people would definitely now say, oh, it was Zozo. It was Zozo. Whether it is or not is up for debate. But what is cool is people that are unaware of Zozo seem to be stumbling upon Zozo. And the fact that he's done so much research and found so many ancient references to a Zozo or similar Z entities, as he called them. It's kind of cool that we know this is not sort of a Slender Man thing.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. The old Slender Man dead end where you can literally like you can see where he came from. You don't have to look too far down the road.
Exactly. So it's cool to me that Zozo seems to have been around for a long time and continues to have a presence in the realm of the Ouija.
Now, is there anything else that's comparable to that? Like, are there other demons that come forth? Like, there's Zozo, and then there's Leviathan, there's Asmodeus. You know what I'm saying? Like,
none that were as famous. I mean, while doing research to interview Murch, I had come across Zozo as the most common one. I mean, I'm sure there are other just demons out there. A very popular theme seems to be, which Darren had mentioned, is sort of the trickery aspect.
Sure.
Where you're going, Grandma, how are you? And then it spells out, great. And then, Grandma, we miss you. Miss you too, Love Bug. And you're like, oh, Grandma used to call me Love Bug. And then suddenly it starts getting darker, and then you suddenly realize this was something else, something evil masquerading as your grandmother.
Wait a minute, Grandma didn't smell like brimstone?
Exactly. So I don't know if that's necessarily Zozo, but I think there probably are these other sort of evil spirits, demonic happenings that maybe just don't have the name recognition. Maybe people haven't said, like, this could be Zozo. They're probably just saying, this is evil. Hit the hang up button, say goodbye, end the session. But if anybody out there does have a Zozo experience you want to share with us for the show, you can reach out to us.
Or I would expand that and say, if you have an experience with a demon that has given you or suggested a name.
Sure. We always love to hear it. thebrothersmysterium@gmail.com or at Mysterium Bros, or you can hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/thebrothersmysterium. Send us a message. And likewise, if you want to reach out to Darren Evans for help, for support, for answers, on Twitter, he's at Darren Evans Par1. He has DarrenEvansParanormal.blogspot.com, and you can get his book, Zozo Phenomenon book.com is one location, or you can get it through Amazon. We ask you, as always, to rate and review us on your podcast provider. Give us a like on Facebook. Give us a follow on Instagram, on Twitter. Just don't follow us in the streets. And if you want to rep the Brothers Mysterium, you can do that with the new t-shirts that have come out, available at fightgiant.com.
Songs heard in this episode were produced, performed, and written by Postmortem Photographs, and The Audiologist, as well as The Battle of Evermore by Led Zeppelin, off of their album Led Zeppelin 4. The one clip heard in this episode was from the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures. If you want to get in touch with us, you know where to find us, at Mysterium Bros for Twitter and Instagram, thebrothersmysterium@gmail.com, youtube.com/thebrothersmysterium, and as always, we want to thank you for listening to us. Later.